Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all League of Legends fanatics and other esports aficionados. Welcome to Risen Esports Week 6 of Champions League, the final week of the regular season plan before we move on to the playoff bracket rounds. My name is Mark Rafa Alexander Aramide, and joining me on the cast today is going to be the young Dean Rebel Fox Merrick. And between these two titans, they are battling for the sole possession of first seed.
Yeah, these are two incredibly talented teams that have shown throughout the split just how good they are, and finally we get to see them clash like titans at the top, ready to look for that one seed as we're about to kick off draft.
Now, to give you guys some context here, Varsity NC State have already taken on Lucky Esports back in Week 3 earlier this season, and they have the head-to-head record winning that series best of 3 2-1. So going in this matchup, Varsity, you have to imagine, are already feeling confident about this.
Yeah, especially since Game 1, Lucky Esports is without their starting ADC. They have Leash off spawn starting for them in this one, so they have to feel a little more comfortable, especially on that bottom side of the map. You'd expect Peach Belt Prodigy to definitely try to flex a little bit on this substitute bot laner.
Yeah, and we were talking about how AD carry priority was not going to be much of a factor, but the fact that Xayah was taken away by Lucky Esports means that the Kai'Sa is left up and available, but Varsity NC State, they're not going to go for the Kai'Sa right now. They're just going to lock in the Pyke and the Akali instead.
They are. Interesting set of picks there. We have seen Pyke go around to some of the solo lanes, but a lot of the time he has played in that support role, certainly something that can set up a lot of ADCs down there. Jarvan is picked up on one side. We're looking at Orianna as well, so a lot of teamfight potential already taken here.
You know, right. The Jarvan Orianna is a tale as old as time combo between getting into the Cataclysm right into the Shockwave. That Wombo combo can definitely make or break some plays, especially in the mid-late game once you have a couple items under the belt of that Orianna. The Grog is going to be locked in here. Now, if you saw Worlds today, you might think, okay, this is going to be Gragas bot lane, and then, or in the support role, and then we might have Pyke in the mid lane or in the top lane. But this is Hani, guys, and for any longtime Risen Esports viewers, everyone knows Hani, the legendary support for Varsity NC State, along with Wolfskull Rider, the only remaining two members from this squad since Season 4 of Risen Esports when they won championship back early in January. That's going to be going into the support role, but with a couple more supports and mid laners taken off the table, Kai'Sa finally is going to go over to the side of Lucky Esports.
Yeah, able to get it this late in the draft, pretty nice for them. Certainly one of the better two, even after some of the nerfs. There have been other champions rising in priority in the bot lane, but Kai'Sa's still up there for a lot of these ADCs. They've been playing them for so long. You see Thresh locked in alongside it as well for Lucky Esports.
This does leave up the mid laner and the top lane option for Varsity NC State, or I should say the top laner and the AD carry. Now, Poppy was locked in, but it looks like the Lucian is going to be the answer against the Kai'Sa. And, you know, Rebel Fox, we were discussing this just a little bit before the show began that, you know, now that Kai'Sa and Xayah are no longer predominantly S tier, this is 9.22, so that the patch is no longer the same as the ones that we saw at Worlds, where Xayah and Kai'Sa were pretty much dominating every other AD carry in the pool. Lucian is a fine lane bully that you can run and potentially stomp in terms of the early game.
Yeah, most definitely. He is one of these counter picks to these two that have been so dominant for a long time. And after all the nerfs, I have to say that he's up there with some of the best ADCs right now. Locking on like alongside Pyke as well is a lot of playmaking potential, a lot of mobility between these two, and then also a very heavy snowball lane. If Pyke gets going at level 6, gets some kills alongside the Lucian, these two can absolutely destroy the map, especially with this front line of the Gragas and the Poppy to open up space for them.
And the damage profile for Varsity NC State is pretty balanced across the board. The top side might be a little bit more magic heavy due to Gragas and Akali, but you do have Wolfskull Rider, who, even though he is mainly a tank, a lot of physical damage, especially in that hammer shock, dealing up to about 16% maximum health and physical damage. And then, of course, when you look on the bottom side of the lane, it is pure physical damage, just potentially ready to wipe off the side of Lucky Esports of the map. You have so much damage coming out for Peach Belt Prodigy if he's able to get that early Blade of the Rune King and or Essence Reaver, and then Hani can just be able to clean up house.
Yeah, that's the case. But really good damage profile also for Lucky Esports. They have the Kled and the Orianna respectively for AD and AP. And then you have that Kaiser that can kind of lean between going either way depending on how the game is going, what she's feeling in terms of the build. That Q max first build with the Marimana, it was nerfed about 13% of its total damage when all things are said and done. So to me, a lot more auto attack focus probably would be better for her to go towards. So that on-hit build, that AP style build, is likely a little bit better. So expect Jarvan to throw a Black Cleaver, maybe a Guardian Angel into his kit, give them a little bit more physical damage.
Yeah, definitely, especially since he is running the Conqueror Keystone. Dipping in a little bit into some bruiser damage will help him be able to skirmish just as well as the Gragas as we get into the later parts of the game. But as the scoreboard says, Varsity NC State and Lucky Esports are both 3-1 and 3-2 respectively, the top of the standings, and the overall winner of this series will be able to walk away maintaining a first seed possession, and it's going to set them really nicely for playoffs coming next week.
And it will, yeah. Early vision here. Lucian gonna actually get the ward, make sure there's no vision onto the Raptor pit. That's a nice little grab for him. Donut Delight a little bit late to the party here, but not going to be punished nearly that heavily because he of course that vision's not there. He can start on the red side, opt to go for more of an early start for his Predator boots, get out on the map as fast as possible, or go a little bit more standard, just go buff to buff, try to see what he can get, and try to find an opening wherever he can fit one in.
Right. I believe Donut placed a ward onto the bottom side of the river and immediately back so he could switch over to the sweeper. So now he has a potential to be able to deny some vision after the first minute, but we do have a pause early on to the game. Not sure if there's any technical issues going on with the players, as unfortunately our state-of-the-art Risen Esports LAN center is still not quite up to everything that we want it to be. And even at the professional level, guys, unfortunately, there's pauses that still happen. But taking over, this gives us a moment for myself and Rebel Fox to look over the draft again and be able to identify some win conditions and some ideal paths for where Donut Delight and I want to say, oh my gosh, I'm thinking of Jarvan, where they want to be pathing towards for the first few minutes of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Both top laners, I think, have a good way to affect top lane. The big thing is that Jarvan is going to struggle a little bit harder because you can't really get on top of the Poppy with that W bowing up. Or at least it's a little bit harder to get on, especially Kled also. So 2 mobility spells can be denied by that safeguard from the Poppy. So expect both top laners to maybe look up there. It will be a little bit difficult for Jarvan, but certainly a lane both can get aggressive into. Something I also want to point out is that if CC is able to land on the Orianna, she has this phase rush, has exhaust as well. Oh, actually, I'm going to wait for this to come through.
It looks like Play Emotional was trying to go for an early evade onto the bottom side of the map, but Donut Delight, reading the situation perfectly, goes from his red right over to the blue buff, is able to protect his side of the quadrant, and this potentially sets Play Emotional a little bit far behind in what his early playmaking wanted to be.
Actually going in for his own invade onto the Raptor camp here, and unfortunately the Orianna can't just roam out of lane fast enough. A little bit of damage down from this Akali as well. Yeah, it looked like Gragas wasn't able to take many, if any, of those Raptors away, so just a little bit of pressure thrown back into the Jarvan.
And sometimes the pressure is all that you need, especially when you have a lane like Orianna into Akali, where the Akali early on is not going to be the most dominant laner against someone like Orianna, who has the range advantage, being able to auto-attack you and proc the passive. But if you're in a position where the jungler is potentially able to put pressure on the mid lane and set you up for success, but bot lane, Peach Bell Prodigy going to get lashed up and lassoed down, but Pyke, Hani trying to be able to answer back on the fly, forcing the flash as well as the heal from Leash off spawn. They trade 2 summoners for a total of 3.
Yeah, really nice play onto the bottom side right there. They have both flashes still on this bot side as well. That's the fear of having the Pyke. That double stun right there was able to set up Lucian to get some good damage down. Fly just wasn't expecting the hook to come out, put him in such a poor position. So just nice read of the situation by Herald there. Or Hani, my apologies. Not Herald, Hani.
Peach Bell Prodigy almost was in a sticky situation, but thanks to Hani was able to kind of rectify the odds there as another death sentence does connect, but he's going to be landing the Bone Skewer right back in the fly, gets the stun down, a couple more auto attacks, and first blood from Hani is going to be able to secure the kill on the fly.
Yeah, a really big interaction between a lot of these Hooks champions. Oh, we're going to wait for a second one.
Oh, another bone skewer right onto leash off spawn, and Rebel Fox, we were talking about this, the potential bot lane difference, as leash off spawn is the substitute coming in for Lucky Esports, and right now it's being exposed.
Yeah, it's not so much even exposure right there. Honestly, that's just Hani making some really nice plays. Again, the interaction between champions here. You can see this. Yeah, the Thresh locks his animation with the Q, and that's great setup for a hook. So he's able to put him back into the team. Doesn't matter if the aftershocks there. Peachbelt's able to dash backwards, and then just follows up immediately. He has the hook. He's really, really close to this Kai'Sa, so just doesn't have to worry about it all that much. You're going to see a second one come in. Does almost get a trade kill on Delusion because he was already pretty low, but just the minions are able to help him out, finish that kill before anything else happens.
Another gank in the mid lane as Hani, once that Pyke is online, he's free to roam onto the other sides of the lanes and the map and trying to influence his teammates to be able to come to success, and already putting pressure down onto the Orion in the mid lane. No summoners burned as Wolf Skull Rider is able to dismount Season 9 Peeker here onto the Kled and gives him a little bit of time to be able to farm freely under the turret.
That will slight advantage over to the Kled so far, but still, as you said, Poppy should be perfectly fine. Has that grasp for some trading, the Q for some trading, makes her life a little bit easier. And with that W, that steadfast presence, just make it a little easier to deny Kled when he wants to dash in aggressively.
Hani returning to the bottom side of the map just to help Peachbelt Prodigy to make sure that he's not getting too harassed under the turret, as there was a huge wave crashing, but the CS difference is still going to be in favor of Peachbelt Prodigy as oh yes. We share the same sentiments.
Nice little shout out there. Make sure. Small indie company, by the way.
And they're getting there. They're getting there. They just they're about to have their 10th season next year as Wolf Skull Rider going in for the final killing blow on a Season 9 Peeker and just disrespecting the amount of burst damage that Wolf Skull Rider can't put out on this champion.
Yeah, that's correct. Not to mention, he gets the remount up, but that last buckler is able to kill off the Kled before he's able to remount. If he remounts, he absolutely wins that 1v1. Conqueror also not able to be stacked very easily without having those autos come out. And I think those are the Vicious Strikes were actually on cooldown, so wasn't able to get those auto attacks off and get that Conqueror stacked for some healing.
Yeah, right now, Peachbelt Prodigy and Hani are just absolutely in control of this lane so far as Death Sentence goes wide, and Peachbelt Prodigy is just putting down the hurt onto both Fly and Leash off spawn. Is not really getting punished by their overextension as Play Emotionals hasn't had a chance to be able to come visit bot lane at the right time for him to be able to try and stabilize the bot lane, or is it just at a point where it's not even worth making that investment?
I said Jarvan hasn't really been anywhere on the map, which is a little shocking to me. Neither has Gragas for the most part. Yeah, he could definitely come towards the bottom side. Pyke and Lucian can be ganked, especially if the support is there from the Thresh, if a hook can be hit. And we've seen Fly hit a couple of nice hooks already. You just have to find the right timing for it. The problem is right now, Kai'Sa has this tier and nothing else alongside it. So Lucian he has a little bit more AD to his name. He has lifesteal, so the extended trades go his way. So there's really no way to trade against this Lucian effectively without having Jarvan already there and ready to fight, because Kai'Sa is just so far behind in this power trough at the moment. I would probably have to wait until next back before they can actually get aggressive. Hani.
He's able to sidestep the Bone Skewer as Season 9 Peeker is just going to have to pop the ultimate to be able to get back to lane and not miss out too much on CS, as he was winning the CS battle against Wolf Skull Rider, but ever since the solo kill, he's been trying to bring it back for himself in terms of gold advantage, as we see another trade going in as Jast is able to actually get the shockwave out from and the Bokni. Whoa, but wait a minute. Looks like an outplay from and the knee is able to take down last.
Yeah, I think it was a really good exhaust timing more than anything that came out from the Orianna, but Gragas is here. Oh, the cask.
Boom. Yeah,
I was thinking he was going to flash and make sure he got the flash into the belly bump there, but actually just decided not to use it in ult instead. So I got to appreciate the saving of the summoner spell, though.
And I think it was smart from Dona Delight as well, because he knew that Anthony still had potentially flash, as only the exhaust was seen from last before going down. And if he body slam flashes, that range is actually not enough to be able to land it. So you want to wait and see if it's kind of like a mind game. Is Anthony going to flash before he actually flashes the body slam? You might as well try to get a free summoner, but because he doesn't react to it, he throws out the cast. He still doesn't react to it, and it's like, all right, well, Q dead.
Yeah, not much that can be done about that one. Actually, also, Kai'Sa had kind of another back timing that was a little bit poor, so she comes back with only a Cole into the lane. So again, really falling behind in terms of the itemization, like power curve, and the wave is so heavily on the side of NCSU. Nice hook.
Yo, Hani is just so clean on this champion, and comes down with the death from below. Bone Skewer right into the stun from the E. And now he's going to look for another one as the flash comes out with the Cataclysm on to play emotional, trying to get a little bit of the damage back with Death from below as Peach Bell Prodigy. They get a lot of damage on the backside, having to flash away, but here comes Donut Delight. Body slam flash right onto emotional. Now he's taking a lot of damage, and Fly is going to try and delay them as much as he can, save his jungler potentially, and neither him nor his jungler will go down, but it looks like on the mid side, there's a lot of action going down. Last had gone down to Season 9 Peeker, but Wolf Skull Rider comes in with a teleport and slams him against the wall.
Yeah, really, really nice set of plays here from NCSU. Let's see what they actually want to look at. You know, Wolf Skull Rider, he sees that his top laner is in the mid lane, and the Orianna ultimate's able to secure it, but under the tower is the Kled, so he takes 2 tower shots, just an immediate flash Q here, and puts him into the wall. Nice play from Wolf Skull Rider reading that. Ultimate comes out.
He might be going for more. Anthony still has flash, though, so if Donut Straight forces it, there's the flash comes out, and there's enough damage. Explosive Cask, still going for the burst, but it's not going to be quite enough, as Orianna, with that shield, is going to be just deceptively a little tankier in the early game.
Yeah, finally able to get that flash out of Orianna is quite nice. Also, Jast, really unfortunate. The first death he had, diving under that tower, getting exhausted right as his execute was going to come through, so not able to find the damage there. And then getting aggressed on by the Kled, a really nice roam from Season 9 Peeker, but good responses here. Now should be able to play a little bit more aggressively.
Yeah, Wolf Skull Rider invading onto the top side and finds play emotional, and Donut Delight comes in with the body slam, is able to take down his opponent.
Yeah, really nice is now that the Gragas has the Predator Boots and even the Runic Echoes completed, they're playing very, very effectively around the middle of the map. They're controlling with these champions roaming in from side lanes, finding counter ganks, things of that sort. Right now, the Jarvan has struggled to find really anything, and at this point, I don't know that he's going to be able to duel Gragas at any point. He has to find his own ganks on the opposite side of the map, which I don't think suits the Jarvan as well as, you know, generating anything he wants.
Oh, Peach Bell Prodigy actually gets hit by the death sentence as he was trying to dash and dodge it, and leash off spawn finally benefits off of a well-placed play by Fly, and Hani's not able to really rectify anything.
Yeah, maybe slight mispositioning by Hani. Actually, I'm going to wait for the TP to come through. Play Emotional is also behind them.
Jast has perfect execution. He's going to have to land if he needs to be able to clean up everything here, but Play Emotional is also here. 2v3 is potentially in the wings here for Lucky Esports, and they turn it around as they land the knock-up onto Hani, get the Cataclysm right onto Jast, forcing out the perfect execution so that he can survive.
Yeah. Good run from Orianna also just to ensure that there was no backup play. They could have maybe turned that into a 2v2 just by ulting back onto the Thresh and then using the execution from the Pike there. But now the response here... Oh, actually...
Oh my goodness. Donut Delight popped the Rift Herald in mid lane, but it gets found out by Anthony. Shockwave comes out, and the Fat Man will go down.
Yeah, nice punishment here from Lucky Esports in the last couple of minutes across a lot of these plays. Again, Hani, he made an attempt onto a hook to try to pull the Kai'Sa away, but a nice ultimate from her puts her back in position to punish the Lucian. And then the response also into the bottom lane by Donut Delight, just not able to get anything done. Or my apologies, from Jast, just not able to get anything done, and they get punished for that as well. Gragas with a nice response play, gets some good plating, but also gets kill for Orianna. So, I mean, a lot of trade-offs here, but Lucky Esports absolutely benefiting from this last few minutes.
Yeah, Rebel Fox, we have to... I think now that the action has kind of died down over the past few minutes, but... so much action has continuously happened back and forth. It didn't really give us a chance to be able to break down what has happened and what's really the state of the game. The first few minutes was kind of calm and peaceful, but ever since the all in the bot lane, it just seems like kill after kill on the mid side and the bottom side and even on the top side of the map as well. And we thought that this bot lane, Peach Bell Prodigy and Hani had a sound resolving lead, and they still kind of do. The 40 CS, 30 CS lead advantage for Peach Belt is nothing to joke about, but now that Play Emotional and the knee has been able to be on the bot side and try and bring back some balance in the bottom side of the map, Leash off spawn isn't as detrimentally far behind as he was before early on.
Yeah, that's correct. He is at least a little further back than he would have been normally after some of these plays that have gone through. Really, the big advantage, though, from the side of Lucky Esports is the combination of the Jarvan and the Orianna. The Jarvan hasn't really found much success in terms of ganking, but he is getting towards this tanky Jarvan build. It's relatively cheap and really effective when he wants to try and engage. And the Orianna specifically, this laning phase was designed so that Jax could get aggressive. He went for the electric Q, wanted very, very early fighting, tempted a couple of times on killing the Orianna, but just hasn't actually had it work out. And so Orianna's had a relatively free laning phase. She's been around the map, has 2 kills herself. So this team fight is really, really well set up from Lucky Esports. It's just the side lanes, this Poppy and then the Lucian Pyke are absolutely dominating. And when these towers start to go down, that's when these skirmishes, these 5v5s start to get determined by the gold advantage.
Yeah, you're already seeing the results of these side lanes going an advantage over the side of Varsity NC State. Whenever they're able to push up, Donut Delight has free roam to be able to go into the jungle and aggress on to play emotional as Wolf Skull Rider tries to take down Anthony, who is overextended, but this is potentially a 1v3, 2v3 as Jast also comes in for reinforcements, making sure that there's no engage from Season 9 Peeker on the Kled as he already uses the charge to be able to get into range. And now it looks like Anthony is going to be responding to the top side of the map for the next couple of minutes as Season 9 Peeker is going to try to defend this mid turret.
Yeah, they've opened up this middle of the map to actually be like kind of a defense point here from the side of NCSU. As you know, they throw the Poppy here mostly to make sure that something you can't get aggressed on in the mid lane from this Kled, from all these other champions because of all that bot lane pressure they just exerted with the Gragas. Now they're starting to come back up, reestablish themselves in the middle of the map. That should be good for them. We're going to see if they aggress on Season 9 Peeker.
Oh, Honey looking for the Bone Skewer, lands in the fly as Season 9 Peeker had already used the flash to be able to get away from danger there, as Jas also had perfect execution. Definitely could have found a kill onto the Kled had he not used the summoner's spell, but without that, it just means that his time in the side lane, especially if it is the bottom lane, without the protection of that first tier turret, is going to be a little scarier now.
Absolutely, it will. Good positions for, like they said, these side lane setups or these side lane setups right now are actually pretty good. Akali isn't really worried about either the Orianna.
Oh, wait. Heal comes out for Peach Prodigy, taking way too much damage from Anthony as he already took the shockwave to the face and walks right back into the ball. He had nowhere to go. Play Emotional was cutting him off, and no, he did not want to burn the flash over the wall as he will go down.
Yeah, not much that can be done there. Honestly, I think he was actually attempting to flash over the wall. He might have had a chance to get out if that were the case, but that was literally the only way he could. Just walks a little too close to the ball. I actually might have favored giving the kill over to the Jarvan in that case. He knows he's going down, so walk into the Jarvan instead, try to give him that kill, but just ends up losing it to Orianna, dies either way. Now the mid lane tower getting aggressed onto as a response.
Yeah, there's such huge tempo swings being back and forth between Varsity, NC State, and Lucky Esports, and frankly, all of it has really come down to Anthony not only being able to win the lane 1v1 against Jast's Akali, but also finding great picks onto the other members of Varsity NC State. And this could be a nice bedrock, a foundation for which Lucky Esports can mount a comeback.
Yeah, and they're playing a lot more like kind of reserved when they know that Pyke is around to try to like not let him get these picks off. Pyke is really, really good in the mid game at making sure anybody who is punishable gets punished very, very hard, especially if he can get that kill gold onto 2 separate members instead of just himself. So if he's got someone there with him, you can generate so much income onto an ADC or onto a mid laner, somebody like Jast. But they're playing so comfortably around this Pyke pick, knowing when he's going to try to aggress, reading when he has that Ghost Water dive up to make sure they don't lose any extraneous kills they don't need to.
Infernal Dragon is up on the table, and this would be so huge for both teams as both have carries that can exemplify and be able to benefit from so much scaling. But Wolf Skull Rider taking a lot of damage already, having to pop the ultimate and Donut Delight in a smite fight, and it's going to go over to play Emotional. He's going to be able to sacrifice his life for the greater cause of securing the Infernal Dragon. Shockwave only landing on the Jats. However, the pieces are falling by the wayside of Lucky Esports, and without Anthony in the fight getting shut down, it's going to go over to Varsity NC State's way as they look to clean up the pieces. But I might take that back as Season 9 Peeker has 2 low health targets and needs to get taken down, but the ball slam comes in from Wolf Skull Rider. One more auto should be able to do the trick, and the double kill comes in for the Poppy.
Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, the setup here, Wolfskull Rider gets pushed out the top side of this fight, but then play emotional. There's no one there to contest it. Can't really kill him in the back of the pit. Nice ultimate there, traps Peach Belt Trilogy in a really weird position, but it's nice is he actually gets into the pit with nobody around to punish him. The Orianna tries to ultimate, misses it right there, and he's able to work his way basically back to front instead of front to back. Thresh able to find a hook on the left side there to pull him over the pit and pulls it off spawn here as well, but gets one kill for Peach Belt there. Yeah, really nice plays across, and then finally comes down to a very close fight. It was really, really close for the Kled here to actually make an outplay, but Wolfskull Rider, as you said, that Q damage is very, very good. So clean up 3-0. They do lose the Infernal, though, on the side of NCSU, and in the end, I think that's honestly the bigger prize.
Yeah, and it was such a ridiculously long and crazy scrap fest between the two teams. As you said before, it wasn't a traditional back to front team fight right there. Everyone was just fighting their own individual battles on both sides of the Dragon Pit, but Wolfskull Rider coming out probably the biggest beneficiary, as not only landing the double kill but did not go down, so he still has a 400 gold bounty to his name that is potentially up for Lucky Esports. But if he's able to maintain it, I mean, it's just going to get harder and harder to try and take down this tank.
Yeah, that it will. You saw in that last fight just how strong he could be, but the other thing is he has actually built no magic resist, so the Orianna is a great option, somebody that could actually burn through this Poppy right now. So the sooner that he's able to get the Orianna into these team fights, the better. It looked really, really good from the side of Lucky Esports to start with as well. They had a good start to the fight. I thought the Jarvan ultimate was really, really good, but the rest of the team had to play so safely coming in. If they set that up with an Orianna and a Jarvan instead of just having the Jarvan jump in, I think that fight goes completely 180. You're talking maybe 5-4 kills with very minimal losses, especially with that Infernal Drake taken.
And that's what we were talking about in terms of the draft. The combo between the Cataclysm into the Shockwave as Fly might be able to find a pick on the Peach Belt Prodigy. Knock up into Flay, into Killer Instinct. That is a dead Lucian. Going to shut down gold over to Leash off spawn. A teleport comes in from Season 9 Peeker. All 5 men are on the mid lane onto the first tier turret, and they're going to look to push in and see how much damage they can do.
Yeah, a little bit of strange pathing there from these two. Actually, the ultimate comes out from Kled. They're looking to continue to push into this tower here.
Looks like they're just trying to get the movement speed for the minions to be able to crash into the turret, but Explosive Cast comes out from Donut Delight. Is able to clear the minion waves as Wolfskull Rider is making some work onto the second tier turret on the bottom side of the map. And now Lucky Esports potentially positioning over Baron, but there's no way that they can start at this point in the game.
So yeah, Kai'Sa, no Rage Blade quite yet. And the Orianna does do quite a bit of damage. Kled does quite a bit of damage, but neither one of them capable of burning Baron that quickly. Wolfskull Rider has the Sheen, so he actually is able to punish with this turret response in the bottom lane. So while mid lane outer is a very important tower to take, an inner tower on the bottom side does open up a split push here for Wolfskull Rider, or Jast if he's able to get to that point with the TP, especially when the Baron starts to be a legitimate objective for either team.
Season 9 Peeker does have Conqueror, so he's going to fancy his chances against Wolfskull Rider. Still has the Keeper's Verdict, is going to look to land. It does not. And Season 9 Peeker now has a chance to be able to punish Wolfskull Rider for his overextension. But Wolfskull Rider needs the wall slam, needs to buy time, is not able to pick up the Buckler. He's going to flash away, and Season 9 Peeker is not going to be able to follow pursuit.
Yeah, Season 9 Peeker actually burnt his own flash, I guess, so it was flash for flash in the end for Wolfskull Rider. You saw, even with all of that armor, the Conqueror and the Vicious Strikes from Kled, just so much damage. I even think if they really want to put him in the side lane and don't care as much about the team fight that Kled can provide, they could throw a Blade of the Rune King on him and actually start winning very heavily the 1v1 versus Wolfskull Rider, but I don't know if they want to opt for something like that. It might be something to look into if they really want to play that 4-1 style, which could work with the Orianna Jarvan, but so far we haven't really seen that. We see him being the one engaging on this Kled pick.
And we take a moment to look at the gold difference between the two teams. It's about a 4,000 gold advantage, or 3,000, I should say, for the side of Varsity NC State. I would imagine most of it is on Wolfskull Rider. Actually, it's only a 300 gold difference. It's still in that bot lane between Peach Belt and Leash off spawn. Almost 2,000 gold in advantage for the solution. But if he keeps getting picked like that, as we saw just a couple minutes ago in the mid lane, then that gold advantage really goes down the drain.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Again, in the setup there. Oh, actually, Wolfskull Rider and Season 9 Peeker back at it again.
Oh, well, Wolfskull Rider still has no Bramble Vest to be able to deal with the healing, but he's doing so much damage, and he's so tanky against this guy is that he doesn't really care.
Actually,
he's now putting down the pain train, and Donut Delight is coming in for the body slam, and he interrupts the charge. He's not able to get away. Keeper's Verdict gets one more knockup, and without a flash, the Explosive Cast comes in and sends him to his death.
Oriana's on her way down to maybe potentially punish this. Yeah, and actually going to turn away and get spotted on this control ward, so they're going to know that that was coming from a while away. Nice little rotation there from Donut Delight. Actually, Wolfskull Rider baited that fight very, very well. We saw how well it went last time for Season 9 Peaker, but this time having Donut Delight around actually got some pretty good trading in his own right, because I think Season 9 Peaker started to realize something was amiss beforehand. But yeah, nice pick off and a free dragon, and now also push on the bottom side for the Poppy means they're going to lose some minions there. And again, no response with the Baron. The Rage Blade is now completed, but they still just don't feel comfortable around that objective yet.
And Wolfskull Rider still has teleport, so if Varsity NC State feel the need to be able to turn, which they're going to do right now, teleport coming in from both Jas and Wolfskull Rider, and they're going to be looking for the play. Shockwave comes in, tries to buy some time, but Play Emotional will still fall at the hands of Peach Belt Prodigy. Without the jungler down, you imagine that this is the time for Varsity NC State to push for Baron.
Especially with Kled with no ultimate and no teleport right now, he's going to have to walk all the way up to this. And with the Lucian having 2 items already completed, and they have plenty of tools to actually zone them away in this particular sense. So I want to see, yeah, Hani's here. Oh no.
Oh no, Monka S. Fly pops the stopwatch, and that's a tool that potentially could have been used later on, but there's a lot of magic damage. You said before, Wolfskull Rider does not have enough magic resistance to be able to deal with and the knees Oriana, and he will get shut down thanks to the Ignite, and Killer Instinct comes out from Leash off the spawn as he looks to take down Jas. A couple more auto attacks will do the trick, and just like that, Rebel Fox, despite having the 5v4 advantage, they're able to take down 2 off of Varsity NC State. They can't do Baron. Do they even want to take the 3v4?
I don't think they can in this particular sense. Again, they're losing ultimates every once in a while, just trying to get pickoffs, trying to put people in the right position. Donut Delay has used it twice in the last few minutes to get the 1 kill on Glad actually fight here.
Peach Belt Prodigy, you gotta be careful, man, and he's gonna fall for his sins here. Donut Delight flashing in over to Anthony, but is not able to close the gap in the distance, and Anthony is gonna be able to survive against Donut Delight as the Q comes out and is not in range, and now this is potentially Baron for the side of Lucky Esports.
Yeah, that's correct. Hani, the only one in the area. I think he has his ultimate up, but I just don't know that it's going to be worth it for him to try to attempt to, prevent this. He's on the hunt for this Oriana.
He wants the Oriana. He finds one, and now he has the resets potentially. Wolfskull Rider's in the area. Doesn't have flash, but he's going to look for the Keeper's Verdict, try to punt out the jungler if he can get it. Smite comes in. Hani misses the death from below onto the target, and it looks like he will go down eventually. But Wolfskull Rider potentially finds the wall slam onto one Season 9 Peaker, stops the Lantern with the W, and Season 9 Peaker, yes, they get the Baron, but he will fall to Varsity NC State.
Again, Lucky Esports is able to find these fights in very, very promising situations. Actually, still going as Wolfskull Rider, not willing to let this one go.
Yeah, they took one death off of him, Rebel Fox, and he said, I cannot let you keep getting away with this. But Play Emotional is just a little too tanky at this point in the game, as Wolfskull Rider will eventually let him go, and they'll try to get some damage onto the second tier turret.
But they should be able to put some good damage. And actually, with the turrets where they're at right now, I don't see a massive siege up with the Baron anywhere. I could see maybe 1 or 2 towers going down, but I don't think they're cracking the base on this go. Still, nice little setup. The Kai'Sa's certainly back in the game, has to finish Nashor's Tooth alongside the Rage Blade, so that AP damage certainly going to be coming through. And we've seen the effect again. The only real magic resist built on the side of NCSU is the QSS from the Lucian, and then the Gargoyle Stone Plate. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Play Emotional, leave him alone. He just walked him out of his own jungle, spamming the Mastery 6 symbols, saying, look at me, look at my bling, look at my team, look at my Baron-empowered minions. We're looking to push down your base.
That's ridiculous. Gotta love that level of sportsmanship out of Play Emotional. But
it's friendly banter, man, not toxic at all.
No, it's not toxic at all, yeah. Do you see... This play is getting set up. They have this siege up on the mid lane, but I do think it's difficult to do this into the Groggs, and all 5 members now back. Hani also now has some angles to flank from in the right situation.
Keep an eye on Peach Belt Prodigy as he does get caught by the death sentence. He still does not have flash, but shutdown comes in from Donut Delight onto Leash off spawn, and there's another shutdown on the fly, and it looks like it's a 5-on-3 advantage, but health bars are critically low for Wolfskull Rider and Jas. They have to be careful about how they play the next few seconds of this skirmish. It just looks like they're just going to allow Lucky Esports to be able to walk out. They do not lose anything in terms of structures on their base, and they're going to take that for the win.
Yeah, and that should be pretty much the end of the Baron buff here. Hani actually hunting some more, trying to get onto Season 9 Peaker. Not able to find the hook either. Could be the end of that.
And Jazz deciding to push up onto the top side of the map. He knows that no one should be able to contest him for the next few seconds as he rides the wave in. Peach Belt Prodigy and Hani are able to knock down the second tier turret, and Play Emotional is in a bad spot. Does not have flash. I don't even know if he has enough mana to be able to get the EQ swag flag. He does, but it's in the waiting arms of Hani, and he was going to take down the jungler once again.
Where's the rank 6 mastery now? Come on, Play Emotional. you gotta take him where you can get him. It would have been a nice little bit of BM, unfortunately getting caught out. We've seen that a couple times from both teams where there's a person just way out of position getting caught or surrounded by multiple members on the other team. It's a little strange to see, but it does happen. Dragon going the way of NCSU. That's their second Cloud Drake of the game. Rotating down towards the bottom side, and without this Jarvan, they do lose their best ball delivery system, or at least immediate ball delivery system. So now it's going to have to be Season 9 Peaker, but the Orianna's still top lane right now.
Fly is too, and Leash Off Spawn just barely came back as both he and the support were, I don't even not sure what they were doing on the top side of the map, but just like that, because of their lack of being able to rotate correctly or on time, they lose a bottom inhibitor.
I guess they do get some like flanking wards for the middle lane in case that becomes a sieging point, which obviously both teams are going to want to. It's a great lane to have in terms of sieging, and both are at their inhibitor tower. And there's good vision around the interior Baron on the left side, on the top side there. You see that cluster of blue wards there, which I think is what Fly was doing, but I just, like, that's not priority versus trying to defend your tower in this particular sense. So especially with Play Emotional having gone down, I just don't think you can make it. Yeah, you see that 2 control wards, all 3 of those wards. That's a nice cluster there. They have a great control of this area, but Baron's not going to be up for a few more minutes. If Baron were up in 30 seconds, that's absolutely worth. You'll take that trade all day, but you don't have the vision. You don't need that vision control at this moment, especially with the wave being pushed back onto the side of NCSU. So just a little bit of miscalculation there.
We're going to have to see how well Lucky Esports are able to defend now that there is a continuous wave of super minions pouring in, constantly applying pressure on the bottom side of the map. It's going to free Varsity, NC State up to go into the Baron side of the map and clear out all of these pink wards that Lucky Esports so much invested into for the sacrifice of their bottom inhibitor, and now it's up to Varsity NC State to do the same now on the opposite side of the map and get ready for Baron, as, like you said, it's not going to be up for the next 3 or 4 minutes here.
Yeah. Here's the big difference, though, is that, honestly, you're looking at NCSU. They can siege in mid and top, so having the priority of this blue side, like blue area here, is really, really valuable for them because, A, you have priority on the Baron. You can control the pathing and see where they're going to be when they approach for Baron, and B, you can actually use it to set up a split pushing here for the Poppy or fights whenever they come around. Oh my goodness, that's a fast Hani.
Spooky, spooky. Hani looking to find someone with the Ghostwater dive as Jast taking a lot of damage on the Season 9 Peaker, and that means he's going to fancy his chances going in for the 1v1. Still has the perfect execution. One more Q should be able to do the trick as he gets the backflip shuriken, annihilates Season 9 Peaker in the 1v1, and that means one less member off the map.
Yeah, honestly, for the majority of this game, Jast seems like he could have been soloed by even, like, Thresh for the majority of it, but you see right there, absolutely devastating the Kled in the 1v1 because there's only the Merc Treads for magic resist. So nice play from Jast, knowing his damage output. And again, this top side control, this blue side, this blue side jungle control for the side of NCSU. It's good enough for them to not have the ability to approach on the side of Lucky Esports. This is a free Baron for them, especially after taking down this Kled. It's just really, really good setup for their play, and now they're going to be able to siege with a second Baron on their side.
Both Jazz and Wolf Skull Rider still have teleports available, so you could even, if you wanted to, if the bottom inhibitor spawned at any point in time while they have Baron, you can have a 1-3-1 setup, because now that Jast does have his items, his X-Tech Gunblade, the double penetration from Oblivion and Boots, as well as the Zhonya's Hourglass, he's more than able to be able to take on anyone in the 1v1 as the charge comes out from Season 9 Peaker trying to defend the top lane turret inhibitor from going down. They barely save it, but another Baron wave along with another cannon minion is coming in, and surely that turret will fall.
Yeah, and Jast is actually pushing in mid lane at the same time, so able to get 2 waves in, and Jast very difficult to engage on with this mobility that he has.
Oh, Flash comes in for Fly as he looks for the Flash Flay. Zauner's Hourglass is going to pop from Jas, and they try to use the Explosive Cast to distance him away, but Leash off spawn will find the shutdown. Shockwave lands on the Peach Bell Prodigy, and he will go down. Lucky Esports looking to defend their base with everything that they've got, as Season 9 Peeker is going to flash over the wall, looking for the chase, but Hani and Donut Delight, they should be able to turn this one around as they get the stun as well as the Bone Skewer, and Hani is a very fast man on this Pike once the mobility boots do kick in. They lose the top inhibitor, but they're able to trade back some kills.
Yeah, and then Jas just getting over-aggressive here. He's way under the tower looking for an auto attack. He has the zonies here, and the Gragas cast comes out to knock people away, but it's not fast enough. Wolf Skull Rider's in the middle of 3 members, and Peach Prodigy gets caught by this Ori ult, gorgeous Ori ultimate. Wolf Skull Rider caught in it as well, so there's just nothing that Donut Delight and Hani can do here to support the rest of their team. It was just really good positioning. This is the opposite of what we saw earlier. Earlier, it was Lucky Esports with the Baron, over-aggressing in the mid lane, trying to go for that tower, and they lose the fight. Now it is actually NCSU. The shoes on the other foot this time. They're losing a fight in the base, overextending with their Baron buff. Now we're probably going to have to wait for a third before we see the game end up.
Now, both inhibitors are exposed for Lucky Esports, but bottom inhibitor should be coming up in the next 5 seconds, as mid inhibitor also exposed, but has not been taken down by Varsity NC State. So now it comes down to Varsity trying to see if they can use the advantage of their 2 solo laners with teleport. Wolf Skull Rider and Jast have both of those summoners available. You can have them split pushing. I'm still convinced that both of them should be able to win the 1v1, or at least be able to attract attention, but with Baron not coming up for another few minutes, there's no real neutral objective to fight on, at least the opposite side of the map.
Yeah, that's correct. I think the one fear that they do have in this particular case, actually, it is the Pike that's currently split pushing in the side lane, because he is difficult to catch and is able to push up with these Baron minions. I like this little adaptation here. But as you said, yeah, I think either of these solo laners can beat the Kled in the pure 1v1, but there's no one else responding on the opposite side, so the other person has to stick around in the fight, and I don't think either of them are perfectly suited for that role, just because, you know, you'd want Poppy to be in the middle of the fight. He's the one that can soak a lot of damage, but he doesn't do much for the 4v4 other than deny some engage. But Jas is a fair amount of the damage and the pick-off potential onto the Orianna, but you'd rather have him in the side lane because he's beaten the Kled already, so a little bit difficult. But they are pulling this team apart. They get 2 inhibitors here, all 3 going down, and now just the process of smothering is going to come through here. We'll see if they're able to choke out Lucky Esports, or if Lucky Esports can turn it with a fight.
And getting really dark here as Varsity NC State looking to take the pillow and completely wipe out Lucky Esports. If we're, hey, you started the smothering.
I said
analogy.
smother, not suffocate. Jeez.
I mean,
I was thinking like cover a flame with a cup or something, not like. Oh Lord.
Did you see Joker Rebel Fox?
I did not. I meant to, but I did not.
Okay, I can't make the reference then. Oh, a charge ultimate is going to come out, lands the Cataclysm right onto 2-3 people, but Peach Bell Prodigy preemptively flashing to be able to distance himself away, and the Season 9 Peeker Cheryl's trying to get onto the backside. QSS is going to get popped up, but the Flag and Drag will land onto Peach Bell Prodigy, taking a lot of damage. Redemption is going to come out, and 2-man Shockwave takes down the bot lane, as well as the jungler from Varsity NC State. Wolf Skull Rider critically low is going to have to leave the scene of the crime, as Jas just not able to get into the thick of the fight, and somehow Lucky Esports do not lose a single member.
Man, you gotta get onto this Orianna if you're on the side of NCSU. She is the one winning these fights. The fight was going okay for them before that Ori ultimate comes out. She saved it for so long. Could have used it on the initial engage from the Jarvan, but it just didn't work out. She knew she had to be patient with it, finds 2 with it, and then immediately also kills Donut Delight as well. The one fortunate thing here, again, for NCSU is they did get all of those inhibitors, so there's minions pushing in constantly, and Baron's not up yet, so there's no punishment there. Full Sky Rider's going to have to soak a lot of damage, but shouldn't lose much more than just this inhibitor.
The inhibitor will fall as the base has officially been breached by Lucky Esports, and now finally been able to rectify some pressure back in this game. And for the first time, we see Lucky Esports take the gold advantage. It's only 1,000, but in the grand scheme of things, it is a huge momentum change.
Yeah, that it is. And again, the most important thing, actually huge flank here from Wolf Skull Rider, going to try to get a fight. Oh,
they're looking for Leash off spawn. They push him back. They don't find a wall to be able to get the stun in, and he's taking a lot of damage from the rest of the team members, and Cataclysm comes out, tries to buy some time. Shockwave completely misses. That is a huge important tool that is not going to be available for the rest of the fight. Leash off spawn and the knee and play. Emotional will go down, and just like that, it's a 4-man wipe. Triple kill comes in from Jas, and Season 9 Peeker, I don't think he's going to be able to defend against 5-man's pushing.
I don't think so either. Yeah, just a really, really clean setup there for that fight. A nice engagement from Wolf Skull Rider, and eventually Hani as well on this Pike pick. They're going to actually aggress under tower and see if they can kill off Season 9 Peeker.
Season 9 Peeker taking a lot of damage, and he's trying his best to be able to ward off the inevitable, but it is no avail. And Lucky Esports, they had a moment. They had a way to get back into the game, but Varsity NC State, they capitalize on the misposition, and they take him down for game 1.
Yeah, super difficult to manage here, but yeah, just the constant blitzkrieg of some of these divers coming in was just too much for them to manage.
We do have to give praise, though, to And the Knee, who, considering the situation where Leash off spawn didn't even perform that badly once he did get some items under his belt. Yeah, the laning was a little rough and taken advantage of by Peach Bell Prodigy and Hani in just him probably not being as well practiced with the team since he is the sub. But now we should have Osama coming into the lineup now that we're going into game 2 and potentially 3 if Lucky Esports are able to turn it around. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting ready for game 2 between Varsity, NC State, and Lucky Esports. We're just having a few technical moments or technical difficulties just getting the players ready into the lobby. But we just want to let you know that we haven't gone away. We haven't disappeared off the face of the earth. No blackouts have happened. But just wanted to update you guys, and we will be coming back to the draft phase as soon as everyone is ready to go.
Legends never die when the world is calling you. Can you hear them screaming out your name? Legends never die, they become a part of you. Every time you bleed for reaching greatness, relentless, you survive. They never lose hope when everything's cold and the fighting's near. It's deep in their bones, they'll rot into smoke when the fire is fierce. Oh, pick yourself up, 'cause legends never die.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting back into the series between Varsity, NC State, and Lucky Esports. And Game 2 is almost underway. But before we get into draft phase for the second game, we want to kind of rewind the tables back and look at Game 1. We know that Leashoff Spawn was a sub, and we have Osama coming in now for the bottom lane. But, off air, Rebel Fox, you were saying that you're not really sure if Leashoff Spawn was the biggest factor here, but that there might be more things at play that Lucky Esports needs to take in mind to take down Varsity NC State.
Yeah, over the course of that game, I thought Lucky Esports had a lot of good team fights where they played very, very well, especially around the Orianna ultimate, but not having a second carry made it so that anytime they made a mistake in a team fight, it was capitalized on very, very well by NC State. That might have been a product of just having an advantage, especially in that bot lane position. They had that increasing gold. They had a couple of fights go their way, the Baron go their way. But outside of that, I think if Lucky Esports play those fights super, super well, they were winning all the time. So bringing in this new ADC, there was no knock on what happened last game with the Kaisa pick. We didn't think it was anything that Leashoff Spawn did wrong necessarily. More so it was that he was a system player. He was doing the damage he needed to, kind of accomplishing what a normal ADC would, but he wasn't taking charge, wasn't making plays happen, and maybe that's something that it's actually possible to now come out from Osama on this pick. So if you have Osama on a little bit more forward, like playing of a champion, somebody who can be a little bit more proactive and carry a little bit harder, it's possible those fights don't need to be played perfectly for Lucky Esports to actually kind of win some of these fights out. So again, having this extra carry, it takes the burden off of Lucky Esports. It makes them not have to play perfectly to win. And I think maybe NCSU, now they have to clean up some mistakes that they were making because they lost quite a few fights in that to that perfect play of Lucky Esports. I think they have to think out what their game plan is a little bit better and execute on where their advantages are.
Absolutely. A couple plays that come right to mind when you mention how Varsity NC State need to clean up their play is some of those fights around the Dragon Pit. Despite being down in terms of jungle advantage, Play Emotional was able to come in, steal a couple dragons away from Donut Delight, despite having positioning and priority from both for bot lane and top lane coming down super early. Losing those dragons is not something that you can just kind of walk away from first game and be like, hey, yeah, we won it. Losing those dragons don't really matter in the grand scheme of things as you're getting ready for playoffs round, which is going to start next week. If you really are going to come into the bracket as the first seed, you got to make sure that those tiny plays are not happening as often.
Yeah, I think a big part that both of those teams kind of struggled in was cutting their losses when it was necessary. A couple of times, NCSU or Lucky Esports, they'd win a fight, they'd win a skirmish, something like that, and then they'd say, what else can we get? And they'd overstay for tower damage, they'd overstay for that Drake like you were talking about. Sometimes it was even Baron. In fact, we saw it a couple of times. Inhibitor tower, both of those teams made that mistake, overstaying in that base. Sometimes they just have to be content with what they've gotten out of a fight, out of a play, and walk away. Dust their hands of the situation, cut your losses as best as possible. If you walk out of a situation with 1,000 gold in your pocket, that's nice. You don't need to stay for an extra 500 and then give back 1,000 in the ensuing fight afterwards. There's no reason for that.
And for the side of Lucky Esports, one person we definitely have to keep a huge eye on is in the knee. That Orianna play. A few of those shockwaves were absolutely massive in being able to give glimmers of hopes of a comeback for Lucky Esports. In fact, almost being able to completely open up the base off of one pick onto their base as they were defending against Varsity NC State. And unfortunately, it just came down to that last pick off, the teleport flame from Wolf Skull right on the top side of the map, and that shockwave critically not hitting anyone in the blue buff jungle entrance. And so unfortunately for them, Lucky Esports did lose the game off of that. But like you said, Rebel Fox and Varsity NC State, there needs to be a lot more respect coming out from them as they go up against their opponents the second time. Now the starter is coming in, and I want to see if Jast is losing the mid lane matchup once again. Yeah, either maybe Donut Delight needs to be able to protect that mid lane slightly better, or set him up for success, because we know that Jast, based on the Akali gameplay, once he was in the side lane, once he had those items, he was able to do just fine.
Yeah, that he was, making sure he gets into that mid game. And also just remembering at the beginning of the game, he wasn't doing a poor job of playing the Akali into the Orianna. He was a little over aggressive a couple of times with the ultimates, especially into the exhaust. But outside of that, he actually played it pretty well, and then he just started getting snowballed onto. They started aggressing into the mid lane alongside the Orianna to get her ahead. Orianna found 2-3 kills just in the ambient skirmishes that were happening around the map, which was kind of unfortunate for the laning of Akali. But yeah, at the beginning of the game, he actually looked rather comfortable. So I'm hoping either A, they can give him a champion that has a little bit more early priority, something along those lines, or maybe they can try to give him the Akali back, take away something safe and comfortable like the Orianna to force a little more interaction in the mid lane that you would want.
And only time will tell, as we should be getting into draft in just a few moments, as just making sure that all the players are ready, as some of them had expressed that they were facing some technical issues with their computer and their setups, and just we had a pause in the beginning of the game in the first one of the day between these two teams, and we just want to make sure that we avoid that situation once again. But when we go into the draft phase, now that Osama is coming into the roster, one of the things that we expressed that was of our particular interest between myself and Rebel Fox is that, yeah, Osama knows how to play the Kai'Sa and the Xayah, but one of his most played champions that could be up on the table is that Vayne.
Yeah. I always just like to see Vayne because it's an interesting champion. There's so many diverse playstyles for Vayne. Everybody thinks of her as just this pure late game monster, but I've seen players that play pure early game Vayne. They just get aggressive in the laning phase and they never stop. They just don't. They continue to press their advantage if they get one, and it's so hard to come back from. Most of the time, they are very mechanically intense players of Vayne, so getting even a small disadvantage does put them behind because they don't know how to play safely on the pick. But yeah, if you could see something like that come out in that last game, if you were able to punish the Lucian and the Pyke in that early game, that game could have looked very, very different. So it would be cool to see something like that come out.
And on the other flip side of the coin, Peach Belt Prodigy does seem to, if the Kai'Sa and Xayah are not on the table for either of these guys. Caitlyn and Sivir are another couple options. Not as exciting as the Vayne or the Lucian, of course, Rebel Fox, but definitely very strong picks in their own minds in terms of what they want to do. Caitlyn being very good at establishing lane dominance and priority and setting up for sieges into the mid game as you can swing around into the mid lane and start opening up the map. Or Sivir, if you just want permanent wave clear. And if you guys saw Worlds this morning between G2 and Fun Plus Phoenix, it was the first champion that LWX locked in that series, and he had a fantastic showing on that champion.
That it was, yeah. You can keep the wave wherever you want it. It's also pretty good into some of these exterior picks. So if the Xayah and the Kai'Sa are both taken off the board, and you're sitting up against something like Ashe, or you're sitting up against something like Ezreal, Sivir's not a terrible champion to pick in to boot, because a lot of these champions, they like to poke and they like to wave clear, but none of them can kind of match what Sivir does in the laning phase in those regards, and none of them scale to the level that Sivir does in terms of team fight. That W, the ricochet, especially when it crits, just tears team fights apart. So again, Kai'Sa, Xayah, they're still up there in priority, but some of these other champions, Caitlyn, Sivir, Ashe, Lucian, Ezreal, you can rattle off names for days. They're all right there as well, ready to be picked up in competitive. And yeah, like you said, Sivir taken this morning could be taken in this series as well.
And it's always a great pick to have, especially when, in these days, when you look at solo lane picks, stuff like the Akali, stuff like, as we saw today, the Poppy, if you're not running Gangplank, is basically what I'm trying to get at, then most of these champions are not going to be the strongest in terms of immediate wave clear or on-demand wave clear. And so Sivir has always found a niche as being able to not only be that late game 6-item power AD carry that just runs through an enemy team, ricocheting blades off, but also just being reliable on-demand wave clear from a safe distance, as auto QW, you clear instantaneously a wave, and even Baron minions have a tough time getting through Sivir as well.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, not having that same kind of armor as they get magic resist in that regard is really, really nice. And, as you said, that wave clear, it's just invaluable, especially in that later stages of the game, or if you're trying to stall things out. If a game is going just too long, or if you've gotten too much aggression coming against you, you can kind of sit back, you can kind of freeze the game, slow down the tempo a lot more easily if you have that wave clear, because of the ability to control waves, the ability to put them where you want them. That's just, like I said, Sivir is invaluable for that. She does have her weaknesses, of course, but yeah, that's something that I could see definitely coming through here.
And as we take a look on the other side of the map, we saw Wolfskull Rider having a fantastic showing on the Poppy. And, when we were going over his champion pool, we were wondering, most of his stuff from his solo queue records is kind of the old school stuff, honestly, from season 8. The Urgot and the Aatrox definitely spring to mind. Kennen and Silas, both champions, while, Kennen's can still be played on this patch. The Silas is not as strong as it used to be. Nico also something that is on the table, but Wolfskull Rider being able to flex deep into his pockets and pull out the Poppy, definitely a strong showing against the Kled. I'm not sure if it's something that Lucky Esports feel the need to take away from Wolfskull Rider in this next draft phase, or if they think that they have an answer this time around.
It seems to be something that he felt comfortable on. It definitely did its damage in team fights. My question is, with the addition of a new bot lane, do you want another tank thrown into your lineup, and do you want to rely on the mid and bottom lane yet again for some of your damage, or do you want to go for something more carry-oriented in that top lane? Wolfskull Rider, a very proficient carry player, maybe you can free up some pressure on the rest of the map by playing something a little more aggressive. As you said, something like the Urgot, the Aatrox, maybe busting out something like Kennen, Fiora, really good champion for split pushing. All these options are kind of there. So it'd be cool to see Wolfskull Rider kind of take that route instead of going for this tank and throwing himself into the middle of a fight. Because if you saw last game, it didn't always work out just being this massive damage soak on the Poppy.
Yeah, there was a couple times where he was almost run down by Season 9 Peaker, or just in fights. He had so much armor, he had very little magic resist, and once he was hit by that shockwave, eventually he was able to be dealt with by and the knee on the Orianna here. And now I definitely am in the same boat with you, Rebel Fox. Putting Wolfskull Rider on a carry would be very fun to watch, and I think you can put that trust in him to have those reins as Donut Delight, as long as he's able to play someone that has agency in the early game, they're able to set up for plays. You don't always necessarily need that front line for the late game if you can just push and snowball the early game and end at a reasonable time, as long as it's before 25 minutes.
And not to say that Season 9 Peaker isn't a good player. He certainly showed what he could do on the Kled. He had a couple of nice engagements. But really and honestly, I think in terms of pure laning context, Wolf Skull Rider absolutely won that laning phase on a champion he probably shouldn't. I mean, you're talking about Kled, one of the more dominant top lane picks, into a tank, which aren't really known for being very strong at the moment, and yet still it was the Poppy that kind of came out ahead on a lot of the skirmishes, and even in CS she wasn't that far down. So yeah, giving him one of these carries would be an intriguing way of kind of pivoting this game for NC State.
And I believe both him as well as Season 9 Peaker do share that affinity for the Fiora. But looking at his champion pool here, there's a couple of other oddball picks, which I assume isn't really top lane Taric, but it's in his most played. Maybe he's also flexing a little bit of support, or if he's running some old school funnel strats with a Master Yi jungle of some sort. But the Wukong, the Kayle, the Vladimir, the Darius are all on the table. He even has a little Vayne practice in himself, and I imagine that he has been making some top laners cry a little bit with that super abusive range matchup.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, able to get things like that. It's also really good, Vayne specifically top lane is a pretty good pick into a couple of, not only melees, but, Mordekaiser specifically is the big one. Mordekaiser got really popular there for a few patches. Vayne's one of the best champions to play into him because you can launch him away with that E, and you can outplay him with your ultimate Q, even in his ultimate, and most of the time you're just harassing him constantly. So, Kleptomancy can also spike you very, very heavily in that laning phase. So, yeah, another one of those is Tristana. I don't think either of these top laners play much Tristana, but another one of those champions that really can take over a game just by having that range advantage and the scaling advantage as well.
Right. And usually Tristana can pop up if your bot laner is thinking about running something that is non-traditional. We saw a lot of Yasuo bot lane in Worlds this year, as well as, although it wasn't as successful, a bunch of mage bot lanes. I know it was definitely had its more fruitful results early on before the major tournament. We saw things like the Heimerdinger bot lane, the Syndra bot lane as well. It doesn't really look like that it's in that wheelhouse for Osama or Peach Bell Prodigy here as we're taking one last look. I mean, Nico could technically be in there, but I imagine that is during the time when it was AD on hit Nico and not the Mage Glacial Augment version of Nico.
Yeah, a little bit of mix back and forth between those two. We could see some pretty interesting picks in this top lane. I don't know what comes mid lane either, because Akali was a pretty good champion. The other big thing I'm noticing also about the side of NCSU is that both Wolf Skull Rider and Donut Delay play, or not Wolf Skull Rider, my apologies, Jast and Donut Delay play a lot of Talia, but we didn't see that. Was it banned out last game? I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember if the bans off the top of my head, if there was a Fiora and a Kennen. And it seemed like when we got in the draft phase, the bans came through so fast that we didn't have a chance to really kind of catch what they were avoiding at all. But we got right into the thick of things there. But I do remember the Fiora and the Kennen specifically. Mm-hmm. So it seems like they were targeting Wolf Skull Rider, making sure that he wasn't able to get onto a champion that could bully around Season 9 Peaker. So they do understand that that is a potential weakness in the side of Lucky Esports. But, drafting phase should begin soon as all players are officially in the lobby. They should be getting ready, and we will be getting ready with the draft in just a few moments here.
Tell me, where do I go? Tell me, where do I take us? Your heart is starting to slow. May the water be safe. As I dive in, bloodstains washing underneath brown waves.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't realize we were not back, but me and Rebel Fox were just continuing on a conversation, and we'll kind of fill you in what we were talking about. We were curious about the Taliyah pick and just kind of the intricacies that Jas could play it in the mid lane. But apart from that, the Akali did seem to work for him once he got those mid-game item power spikes. But other than that, we were also discussing that Jas just seems to have the fundamentals necessary as be able to pick up a lot of other champions in the metagame, as there's not really much to go off of in terms of his current solo queue records, as it seems mostly is a bunch of jungle Taliyah games.
Yeah, a little bit difficult to read what the rest of his pool would be. I'm not sure if that actually indicates whether he has a limited pool, so we could potentially see Kali a second time if he doesn't feel comfortable on another champion. But yeah, the Taliyah we mentioned, whether it was banned last game or not, it would be cool to see that come out flexible between those two out of the mid and jungle. That also kind of explains to me a little bit of why Jas was punished a little bit in that mid lane. He plays Akali quite a bit. He's obviously a good Akali player, has those fundamentals you were talking about. But in terms of that mid lane micro play, you have to play the position for a long, long time to get some of those little kind of those little caveats down, and maybe that's what the Orianna was able to punish him with, was some of those little outplays, those little extra things you do as a mid laner who plays for a long time versus somebody who kind of steps in.
Right. And probably some of the things, knowing just understanding where the turret range should be, as if you're playing mostly jungle, you might have a kind of a general grasp of where that range is, but it's not until you play mid lane 1,000 times and you're constantly trying to find the areas of that outer circumference where you can poke safely without taking a turret shot in response.
Not to mention, you're talking, if you're playing jungle mostly, you have a lot of matchups that you can see, but you don't play in the mid lane matchups as much. So, damage numbers so well if you're in that mid lane position versus if you're in some other position. So maybe, again, that I take it back to that first engage the Akali had in that mid lane into the Orianna, where he thought he had the damage for it, the exhaust came down, and then the Ori is sitting there with half a health bar, and he's questioning exactly what happened. Draft about to start now.
It's wait a minute, shouldn't I win this matchup? And it comes down to, it's yes, you do, but not right now.
Taliyah was banned out. Yeah.
Bam. Well, that answers a lot of questions then for us, as Taliyah in the hands of either Donut Delight or Jas could definitely do some
damage.
Yeah, do some damage. Yeah. I just want to give a shout out to Rebel Fox. He's been basically completing my sentences a couple times when I couldn't really find the words perfectly. So, thanks, man.
Of course.
Well, we do see the Fiora ban coming out once again. This time it was actually from Varsity NC State against Lucky Esports. So they're recognizing and respecting the fact that Season 9 Peaker does have a lot of time put on this champion. The Pantheon, of course, as well. Despite getting a couple nerfs, they're still respecting the power of this champion, as well as an Anivia against and the knee. If he was able to play Orianna to such a degree, I would hate to see on the enemy team what a powerful Anivia player could do to me.
Yeah, to me, Anivia players that know how to operate their champion the best are some of the absolute best players in the game. It feels like Anivia is unbeatable when played at an absolute top level, so I'm happy to see them respecting that from and the knee, especially after game 1, where Jas did have that little bit of struggle in the beginning. Isa, take it first.
Yeah, after the Gragas ban from Lucky Esports seemingly being the only thing that was changed up from the first ban phase around, Kaisa is going to be the priority pick for Varsity NC State. A Speech Ball Prodigy will lock that down, as they don't want Osama to have that in his hands. And now he's contemplating whether he wants to go for the Ashe or the Caitlyn here, as the hover is going to come in with 4 seconds on the clock. What is going to be the answer? It's going to be the Ashe.
And my question is whether they're willing to run the Morgana as well. Actually, they're going to prioritize the Rek'Sai. I believe it was banned out in the last banning phase against them. Gives play emotional. Another really, a little bit earlier of a champion, even than I would say the Jarvan. Jarvan plays a lot more tanky, and he's really good in the kind of skirmishes, the 2v2s. His ganks are very, very good setups, but he's a lot more of a team fighter. Rek'Sai has a lot of his power front-loaded into the beginning of the game. The response of the Pyke and the Elise as well.
Well, we already know how well Hani was able to play during the early laning phase on this Pyke, and as we said before in the first game, longtime Risen Esports viewers who know Hani knows how powerful he is on this champion. And the Elise is going to come out for this time on Donut Delight, and the only thing that about this pick that is kind of a detriment when he doesn't have the Gragas is that even though the Elise does have better killing power, arguably better ganks than Gragas in the early game, unless he does have the Predator Keystone online, that at least is not going to be able to scale as well as the Gragas, is because you have reliable AoE crowd control from the Gragas as you go on further into the game. Well, late game for Elise, if you don't land those cocoons and you don't have enough damage to be able to assassinate anyone, then you're just a walking spider.
Yeah, ready to get stomped by just about any champion on the opposite team for sure. It's a pick composition, like, honestly, like, through and through right now. Pyke and Elise both kind of point to that, especially in this mid-game. This Elise-Pyke combination can do such heavy damage to somebody who's waiting around, especially someone with low mobility like Ashe, which is why I love the response of the Thresh. Thresh's Lantern is invaluable against somebody like Pyke. We saw it last game a couple of times repositioning ADCs, but in this one, against the Elise and the Pyke, this is going to be great for every champion that has it. So this Thresh, I expect Fly to get those Moby Boots up and running as fast as possible, because he needs to be everywhere to make sure that this duo doesn't just run over this mid game.
And already Jass being targeted with that Akali ban. They're trying to see and exploit his champion pool. Let's see where Jass reaches into to see what kind of mid lane matchup he's going to have to do, especially since that more than likely he will be blind picking against Anthony, unless Season 9 Peeker specifically wants to be able to have the counter pick option ready against Wolf Skull Rider.
Yeah, that'd be a little bit questionable. Vladimir, not a bad pick, especially because it can be flexed between Anthony and Season 9 Peeker if they really wanted it to, although I would expect it to go more towards that top lane. The Vayne Rise being hovered now. The Vayne is what I'm hoping for, but I know we're not going to get it.
Yeah, I would imagine that if anyone's going to pull out the Vayne, it would be on the side of Lucky Esports. Gangplank definitely a potential option into the Vladimir, as both just want to be able to scale. But you know what's a better scaler? That Kale, who is still on the table, and Wolf Skull Rider definitely thinking about it. But the Kiana switch at the last moment, bamboozling both me and Rebel Fox. It looks like this is going to be the option for Jass, and this time Wolf Skull Rider is going to take up the reins on the Kled.
Yeah, this time wanting to take it into the Vladimir, most likely. And again, it's a flexible pick between the top and mid lane, but so is the Kled. The Kled can be moved between the two, and I don't think Kiana, my apologies, has really much of an issue going into either lane also, especially into the likes of the Jax. Doesn't have many auto attacks to actually deny. So if it were me, I would just want to put Kled in the lane against the Vladimir and let him just go to town. He can have that healing reduction as early as level 1 and just completely you push this Vladimir out of lane as best as possible.
Yeah, ideally in a world where everyone has pretty practiced on all these champions, I would heavily agree with you that you should send the Kled to try and abuse this Vladimir lane matchup, but we have no idea how much experience Jass has on the Kled, and now that they throw this curveball and actually sending the Vladimir mid lane, even though traditionally we've seen him top lane so much of the season, that I think they're just going to stick this one out, because you got to make sure that Jast is comfortable in this matchup, and Anthony might be able to have his way. I'm not sure how this matchup actually goes down.
Yeah, between the two of them, especially with the Ignite, Jass can get aggressive on the Vladimir very early with Kiana. I don't think it's a matchup you lose most of the time on the side of Kiana, especially if he goes for this more roaming style. Just this hit squad of Kiana, Elise, and Pyke in this game is going to be so hard to deal with. But it is something that can be sandbagged by the Vladimir. I think the kill pressure from Kiana is lowered immensely when that W is able to come out from the Vladimir to deny any additional abilities from coming through. And the other thing is, like, with these lanes set up, again, Kiana has to roam, which means Vladimir gets a relatively free lane, and top lane's a little harder to play as the Kled as well. It's a little bit difficult to play into the likes of the Jax with that auto attack denial, especially if he saves it for those vicious strikes. So Wolf Skull Rider, he has his opportunity to play the Kled, as opposed to last game when it was Season 9 Peeker. Season 9 Peeker, last game the response to it was the Poppy.